In order to get into a different reality, you have to be able to feel that different reality. In other words, if you can't feel it, for you, it doesn't exist. This is the whole law of attraction, like feeling is the secret thing. This is what that actually means. And the fact is that feeling is a vibration. If you can't vibrate with it, you're not in it. Quite literally, you're not vibrating in the same place as that thing. So within the spectrum of our five senses, we're perceiving maybe 1% of the observable light and vibrations that actually exist. So in other words, there's all of these realities that are intermingled within this one that we might be perceiving with our five senses that are absolutely here and present, but we might not be feeling them because of how our senses are specifically tuned to certain frequencies, okay? Now, your senses, especially in this sort of fake matrix hyperstimulation world, can be dulled. And this is kind of what I think a lot of these systems are trying to do right now is they're trying to dull people's senses. They're trying to make it so we're overstimulated in certain ways and understimulated in other ones that make it hard for us to vibrate with more natural frequencies, the more conscious frequencies where we just get into this like hyper stimulated seeking entertainment, seeking all of these things, which there's nothing wrong with that on the surface. It's just a matter of if this gets to a stage where it starts dulling our senses, it makes it more difficult for us to actually feel into realities that are higher, that are more conscious, that are more aware, that are more saturated with light, right? And this is where we want to be going if we're trying to get lighter in this life. If we're trying to move forward, if we're trying to move up the ladder, quite literally. So with that, when we can tune into our senses and when we can essentially remove the distractions and just feel what is and feel what's in this space, we can tap into different frequencies that exist within this space. But it takes that awareness. And this is why a lot of the population is still in this sleep-like state. It's because their senses are just being bombarded by all sorts of different things, and what they're feeling, what they think they're feeling is like the truth, like the reality, but it's not actually the truth that is sort of deeper than that, that's subtler than that. Because this is the essence of realities that exist on higher bandwidths, higher frequencies. They're not loud. Like like say the news comes on and it's like, look at this and look at this and fear and distraction and all this. And it triggers these emotions in you that are very loud. And these emotions want you to pay attention to them. It's survival, like keep the vessel intact. Okay, this is a reality, right? And a lot of people are feeling into that reality. There's a whole lot of variations of this. But when people are feeling into that reality, they think that that's actually reality, and there's nothing other than that, because that's what their senses are tuned to, and that's what they're feeling, so that's what they're vibrating with. Okay? Now, if we were to essentially take back our senses and actually focus on the subtler frequencies, the quieter, the more subtle frequencies that pervade the louder ones, then what we're actually going to find is that there's this whole realm, this whole range of bandwidths of frequencies that we could tune into that are actually valid and true and real realities that all we need to do is tap into. Okay? So this is why we meditate. This is honestly the purpose of meditation. I'm talking about like specifically a more transcendental state of meditation where what we're trying to do is just observe, where you sit and breathe and you allow the thoughts to go, you allow the emotions to go. When someone becomes a true master at meditation, what they're essentially doing is they're detaching from the space, okay? All of the experiences, all of the thoughts, all of the vibrations and emotions that exist that are earthbound frequencies and emotions, when you can meditate and focus inward and focus on the self, what you're doing is removing yourself from the reality of earth. Now, this is not an escapist sort of way, but this is more so you're tuning into a higher reality beyond that. Like I said, my friends, there are many levels to this that we could actually get to if we were to focus on the right things and not be so distracted by what's loud outside of us, okay? There are also entities and beings that I've talked about plenty at this point that have essentially been trying to get into this space by trying to use humans to actually feel their way into this space. as I've talked about, entities that are transactional, where they're trying to get you to do a certain thing so they can feel that because they want to have skin in the game. Because being involved with this reality, there's actually like benefits to being incarnated. There's benefits to being in a human body that a lot of humans sort of take for granted. You know, this is a space where we're involved in density, but we have sort of the skin, we have the foundation around us, we have skin in the game. And by having skin in the game, we can actually go through incredible transformations here that can lead to like soul abundance, quite literally, where we can move on from this space and actually put ourselves into greater spaces, but not if we get distracted. And that's why these entities grab onto people and they're like, do this and do this and do this. And then these people are like feeling this thing that maybe they don't want to be feeling, or it's not the best for them. But these entities are getting them to feel this thing for them so they can try to sort of vicariously feel it for themselves and try to get into this space, right? So when it comes to actually ascending beyond this space, because I think this is an interesting idea of how, reincarnation works. Say, for instance, remember what I said at the beginning of this video. If you can't feel a space, you can't be in it. And in order to be in a space, you have to feel it. This also works the opposite way around. If you can't remove yourself from the certain feeling of a space, you will still be in that space. So a lot of people think that in order to actually leave this earth, like to ascend beyond it and not have to come back and have another reincarnation, you have to go basically climb a mountain and sit in a cave and meditate for 20 years and be enlightened, right? That'll get you somewhere, no doubt about it. But the real truth is, there's many other spaces that exist that are vibrations that you could go to that aren't Earth. Okay, so here's what's interesting about this. So Zen, this concept of like total stillness, might call this enlightenment, that is the cessation of vibration. Okay, so that means that if you're a waveform right now, and this waveform is experiencing duality and it's putting out these vibrations and these waves, and that's the feeling, then Zen is to remove the feeling completely. To be in a total still space where you're not vibrating with anything. Now, the thing about this, people on Earth might wonder, well, it's like, okay, well, where are these like powerful ascended masters that, like, why aren't they coming down here to help us? Because they don't care. And this is not like a nihilistic because they don't care, but it's because when you become still, when a soul has reached the stage when it's ready to be still and no longer be in the vibration, it doesn't have any emotions. It doesn't have any thoughts. It doesn't have any connection to anything because it is everything. It is the stillness. It is the still point. It is the oneness. So they don't care. When they reach that stage, they're not going to be like, okay, now I'm going to go back down here and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and we can change this and we can make this happen. No. This is the irony of ascended masters, because a lot of people think that like when they get to this stage and they've reached nirvana and it's like, being like, I'm vibing or I'm not vibing at all, right? They think, why aren't they coming down to help us? Like, why aren't they coming to do this? And it's because they have left the space. They're not feeling the reality anymore. So they're not in it. They don't have anything to do with it. In order to have something to do with it, they would have to be feeling it, right? So this is a fun one to talk about with people that do think ascended masters come and try to help us, because it's like they have moved on completely. And this is also sort of the reason why I think a lot of people that chase nirvana or enlightenment or Zen, which is nothing wrong with that. Obviously, we're all on our own journey and we can do whatever we want. But a lot of people chase that and think that like this is what is going to be best for the world. This is how we're going to like do this for the world. It is quite honestly like a very selfish path. And within the consciousness of like all that is, it's not to say that we have to be serving others. But if you're going to be involved in the space, then it's like part of your duty as a being who's choosing the light and choosing the expanded consciousness is to actually recognize the oneness of all of us and work to bring that consciousness up and shift that consciousness. But if you're just going to go into the stillness, if that's your path, you're not going to be helping anybody. And that's what people need to realize. There are ascended masters. It's just they're not in the space anymore. They're not feeling the space anymore, so they're not here with it. But with this, my friends, Recognize that there's a whole spectrum and bandwidth of frequencies and different matrices that exist for us to go and inhabit and go be in. Because a lot of people, it's like they get this idea, they're like, this is my last incarnation, I don't want to be on Earth anymore. And it's like, okay, fine. But recognize that to go and be still and essentially like be nothing anymore is not the only path that those souls have to go on. You could ascend beyond this space and go find some other incarnation in some super advanced alien planet or something like that, and live out some life where you incarnated as some super advanced species that lives to be 400 years old, and you remember your past lives in that matrix, and then you just live in basically conscious paradise for a period of time. That you could do that, but you have to be able to detach from this earth space, which means you have to be able to tune into yourself. Okay? And this is not about escaping earth, because what you resist will persist. So therefore, if you have this mentality that you're like, I'm just trying to get out of this experience, I don't want anything to do with it, you don't have your skin in the game. You're here to have your skin in the game. You're here to be here in it and actually learn the lessons you need to learn by being here, because you chose to be here. Okay? The reason that we actually are here, and the reason this experience is such a blessing, is because imagine for a second, you were incarnated in some life that was like, it's a very conscious planet or ecosystem or whatever, with a very conscious species, and they don't really have huge problems. They don't really have like these deep things that they have to go through and to grow through them and evolve through them. It's an easy life, and you come out of that and you'd be like, oh, cool, that was nice. Like, you're on vacation. Nothing wrong with that. I'm sure there's some incredible experiences to have out there that you could spend lifetimes doing for however long you want. But the beauty and the reason that there's so many entities that want to have skin in this game, specifically this Earth game, is that through this dense space, through this very divided and distorted space, there is the most potential for growth and transformation. Recognize that. The fact that within our lives, I'm sure if you're watching this, you can resonate with me, which we've all had to go through difficult times. We've all had to face darkness and challenges in our own way. And the fact that we had to go through that meant that we had to grow. We had to come into a deeper awareness of ourselves, a deeper understanding of ourselves. We had to dig deep in order to find our roots during some of those hard times. We had to find our light when there was shadow. We had to see through the night into the dawn, quite literally. What other experience other than a challenging one is going to give us that opportunity? Because if you take these challenges, and instead of resisting them and saying just like, oh, I can't wait till I pass on from this space, I don't want to be involved in it, I want to be done, I'm never coming back here. If you're in that, you're going to come back here, because you're going to get out of this and you're going to be like, man, I wish I would have just like embraced it and recognized that when I had that skin in the game, that was how much value I had and how much opportunity I had to actually change myself and to grow as a soul and as a being, right? Souls that ultimately like push away this experience, the ones that become conscious, that's probably how they end up, where they're just like, man, no, I wish I would have done this. Because then you get like sort of the more vengeful souls where they're trying to be involved with humans when they're not physical anymore, like these spirits that try to get involved with humans. And they're like, man, I didn't get to fix that problem. So maybe if I attach to this human and I get them to do that and I get them to do this, then I can feel the space and then maybe I can get into it and I can essentially do what I needed to do within that space, right? So with that, it's not about being perfect either. It's not about like, oh, if I don't learn all my lessons and I don't do all this, it's not that kind of game where it's like we have debt and we have a laundry list that we have to go through, and now you have to do this and now you have to do this. There are some things in your life that it's like you will have to go through them, and they are somewhat premeditated in a way based on certain patterns and certain star alignments that actually correspond to how you came into this space. But beyond that, the most important truth is to recognize who you are. It's to become whole. I've talked about this over and over, and I will continue to talk about this because it's probably one of the most important things I could talk about, your wholeness. You becoming whole and you stopping with the like chasing things outside of yourself and looking outside of yourself in order to become fulfilled. If you can be in a place like this that's constantly trying to distract you and pull you out of yourself, and you can find your wholeness within a space like that, you can do anything you want. you can sit in that wholeness and you can recognize that it's like, I don't need anything from anything outside of myself, because through the lessons and the hardships I've gone through, I have found a deep light within myself, a deep connection with myself. And when you feel that light, you are in that reality, right? When you can tap into the wholeness within yourself, you are within the reality of infinity, which is the reality of infinite possibilities. Meaning, if you wanted to leave this place, you could. If you wanted to come back, you could. And that would be the kind of place you'd be in, because you would pass on from this life, move on into your eternal, your spirit body, and essentially be like, okay, I'm fulfilled because I found my fulfillment within the depths. Within the density, I found my internal fulfillment. Like I said, this is not about doing the external things. You can do the external things. That's part of the experience. But this is not about like, man, if I didn't get that, or if I didn't get this, then I'll never be able to like live it up. Like, I'll always be living in regret. It's more so, you didn't get that and you didn't get this, and it doesn't matter to you anyways, because you found your wholeness. You found the completion, the infinite part of you that is the supreme being, and that's what you resonate with. That's the deepest lesson, my friends, to feel into that reality where you are already supreme, and then be able to work with practices such as meditation, such as breathing, that power up your vessel and allow you to have the consciousness and awareness to actually tune into different spaces and tune out of different spaces. Learning to be detached, and then learning to be focused, and learning when to be detached and when to be focused. Because when we can hone those skills and we can actually tap into ourselves, like I said, the universe is yours. You can do as you please. You can go and you can be still. You could choose to go and follow the still path and get to that place where it's like, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to be having experiences anymore. So I'm going to choose still. I'm going to choose to not be the vibration anymore and be still and just be the consciousness. And then so you will. You could do that for as long as you want. Or you could find a different reality. You could find another place, another plane, another planet, any of these places, right? These P words. You could find one and literally insert yourself into the reality, because that is the power that your soul actually has. But we have to recognize that we need to be able to feel it in order to be able to access it. This is what it's about, my friends. This is essentially still the dualistic polarities of the masculine and the feminine. We have the electricity and we have the magnetism. You're already the electric charge, but you need to feel the magnetism in order to actually bring those together and create an electromagnet, to attract the space around it, to become the space, and then have that space essentially be responding to you as if you're a part of it, rather than negatively magnetizing it. Which, even in the case of manifestation, because if you're thinking about what I'm saying, this also applies to like manifestation on earth too. If you want to be living a certain kind of life, then you need to be feeling like you're already in that kind of life, right? This is the most like surface level version of this that people are talking about all the time, that I've talked about plenty before. That is like, if you want to have this and you want to have that, and this is the kind of experience you want to be having, you need to be feeling it. You need to be feeling into it. But this goes so far beyond that, because this earth school is essentially like getting the things is the lesson. It's not actually about getting the things. It's about learning how to use your power to get the things. Let me say that again. It's not about getting the things. It's about the lesson that getting the things teaches you, because it shows you how to bring these polarities together, to use your power, to use your energy, to use your awareness, to use your detachment in the proper order, to create the proper formula that is going to get you where you want to be and have you sustaining and balanced where it is that you want to be. Whether that be you're living a specific kind of life on earth with specific things, or you want to move on from earth once you're done with this life and you want to go live on a vacation planet or something like that. Go live in a more conscious experience. Go live in a heightened reality or some other dimension where you're having some other experience. Or you want to go be still. But my friends, recognize these polarities. There is vibration and there is no vibration. And these ascended masters that have ascended beyond, like I said, they are in this space of no vibration. Then there's also those that have ascended to these very high states of consciousness that are still a being, if you will, like a specific being, not just like the no being or the non-existence, right? They are still a specific being, because they're still, I guess you could call that like the positive and the negative. This is also talked about like you have a page with words written on it, and this would be like the page on which the words are written. Okay, the space on which the reality is created. There's both of these polarities, and there's infinite room for you to play within them. But my friends, we have to recognize how we are vibrating and interacting with this space and how it is all an internal game. I will reiterate this because of how important it is. Your job here on this planet is to find your wholeness. It is to recognize all the things that you feel like you need outside of yourself and fulfill that need within yourself. And then have them too. That's okay too. But if you're trying to get something outside of you to fulfill yourself, you will never get out of this earth plane of existence, because it will always bring you back because you feel like you need something from it. You already have everything. You have already had everything. And everything is within you, and it has always been within you. To truly and deeply realize that is to free yourself from the bondage of any experience, because this is not meant to be like a prison for you, a prism, right? Think of that word. It refracts light in a specific way. A prism. A prism traps the light, but the trap is not a punishment. The trap is just to show you that, okay, if I put this consciousness into this prism and it's going to be reflecting outward into all of these spaces, and then there's some aspect of the self that wants to go out and grasp that and take that, and it feels like uneasy or in lack or something like that, if it doesn't have it, then it's showing you where you're not whole. It's showing you where you're not fulfilling your internal space with your own consciousness and awareness, and you're trying to get something outside of you in order to fulfill that, which that is the trick, my friends. That is the lesson. That is what you need to be learning, because all of these feelings are a distraction. And they are a distraction to teach you what you need to be focused on and what you need to be tuned into, and how when you tune into the proper things, you truly have become a master of your own reality, and you will continue to create as you see fit for the rest of eternity. All right, my friends? So with that, be whole, be well, and we'll talk soon. Take care.